Okay, so let's talk about theme. Theme is something that we're going to be working with this semester, so I want to make sure that we're clear on what theme is and what the process is to find theme. So we'll do a little bit of practicing before we get into the real heavy duty stuff of writing a theme analysis essay. So in the past, you may have thought of theme as, things like love or family, something simple like that, or even something like the eternal struggle against corruption of power. That one sounds really great. Like, it sounds more detailed than love or family. But the problem is that these things here are not a theme because they are topics. Okay? And a theme is not a topic. Okay? A theme is a statement. A theme should be expressed in a complete sentence, okay? Specifically, the theme is a statement about what the author believes about the topic. So you need the topic. The topic is important, but it is just not the theme, okay? So when we talk about theme this semester, we are not talking about a topic. We are talking about a statement, okay? It is what the author believes about the topic, and it gives us a general statement about life. So when you have a complete theme statement, it should be something that your reader can walk away with no matter who they are, and it applies to their life in some way. It is a general statement about how the world operates. We could say a general truth about life. So that is what we're talking about when we talk about theme. Okay? Now there are certain steps that we take when we are looking for the theme or seeking to develop a theme. So the very first thing that we can do is create a list of topics. Okay. Now, here's where things get tricky, because if we're talking about a short text, so a short text might be something like a short story or a poem or a film. We can wait until we're finished with that text to create a list of topics, because we can watch or read these things more than once. So we can decide, we can read the story once and decide, okay, here are some topics that are involved in it, and then we can read it again and do the rest of the steps. When we're talking about a long text, so this would be, a book, or if you're talking about multiple texts, so maybe you are using short text, but you're using more than one of them, like you're comparing 3 different films, or you're studying the poetry of a person, so you're reading multiple poems. If we're doing that, or we're reading a whole book, like we're going to be doing this semester, we're analyzing an entire book, then you can't really go back and read it again. You don't have time. You're limited to a semester, right? And nobody really wants to read an assigned book more than one time. So when we're talking about a long text, we have to do these things while we're reading. So we're actively working through these steps while we are reading. So you're creating a list of topics, and you're doing that as you progress through the book. Okay, so you may get 5 chapters in and be like, hey, here's a couple things that are really coming up a lot. and you're going to create that as you're reading. Okay. What is important is that you have to finish the text before developing your theme statement. So you could talk about topics all day long. You can be listing topics, you can be finding examples of those topics, but you can't create your theme statement until after you have read it, because you might create a theme statement halfway through the book, but then in the second half of the book, your theme statement is proven wrong. So you don't want to get too attached to a theme statement until you have all of the information about the story. Okay? Part of how we develop a theme statement is we gather evidence. So again, we are gathering evidence when we're reading a long text. We're gathering evidence while we read, because we don't have time to go back and reread and reread and reread like we would with like a poem. If we were doing one poem, we could read it 15 times and keep looking for evidence, and that would be fine. But because we're working with a long text, we will be gathering evidence as we read. So that's something that we're going to be doing this semester, but you're looking for evidence about the topic. So if your topic is family, you're going to look for events in the story that center around family. You're going to look for quotes from characters that talk about family. You're going to look at characters themselves and how they symbolize family. So you're looking for anything in the story or in the text that has to do with your chosen topic. Okay? Once you have gathered your evidence, so you finish the text, you've gathered all your evidence, step 4 is to choose a topic if you haven't already, and write a statement. Okay? Choose a topic and write a statement. And the easiest way to generate a statement is to give yourself a sentence starter. So we start with, the author believes that. And then we fill in the blank. What does the author believe about your topic? Okay? So that's the easiest way to start, is with that sentence starter. Now, when we put the theme statement in our analysis, we take that part out. So our very last step here is to cross out the sentence starter. So we take out the author that believes that, and then this is our theme statement. So our final theme statement is just a general statement about life. Okay? And we'll go through an example in a second so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I do want to give you a couple of pointers about things that we should avoid. So before we get into the example, I'll give you some things that you should watch out for when you are developing a theme statement. So first thing is, you don't want a theme statement that is too vague. Okay? So this would be like, you know, we start with our sentence starter, the author believes that, and then we come up with integrity is good. Well, this, like, duh. We know that integrity is good. Even if you took out good and said something like important, it's still not a good theme statement because it's too vague. Like, we still, like, we know that that's the truth. Nobody cares that you're making that interpretation of the text. Like, we all know that integrity is important, and you're not offering anything unique or new about this text. So this is too vague. Okay? And all in all, we want to avoid words like good and bad. We don't want to use those. We are seniors. We are more advanced than that. So we want to avoid something that's too vague. Running the risk of contradicting myself, we want to also avoid something that is too specific. And what that means is we don't want to involve any specific plot information. So, no characters' names, no setting information. We don't need any of that. So it can't be too specific to the text. And again, we'll look at an example of this. But you don't want it to be too vague. You don't want it to be like a duh statement, like, okay, everybody knows that. But you also don't want it to be so specific that it only applies to this one text. You want it to be something that applies to everyone. Remember, I told you, we want a general statement about life. We want a general truth about how the world works that anybody can walk away with and be like, hey, that kind of applies to what I'm going through right now. So we want it to be something that will apply outside of the text to the world in general. Okay? So just so you can get a better picture of what I'm talking about, let's look at an example. And I'm trying to use an example that we're all familiar with, so I hope that everyone watching this video has seen The Lion King, either the animated version or the live action version. If you haven't seen either of them, you should go rectify that situation right now and then come back and finish this video, because it is vital to your well-being that you see The Lion King. And I am not exaggerating. It is the best animated feature of all time. Anyway, I digress. But The Lion King. So let's talk about the theme of The Lion King. So my very first step here is I'm going to come up with some topics. Okay, so thinking about The Lion King and what the story is about, it is, by definition, a coming-of-age story. Coming of age just means it's about someone growing up and kind of growing into themselves, and that's definitely what happens with Simba in this story. It's also about family in multiple ways. So, it's about Simba and his father. It's about Simba and his responsibility to Pride Rock. It's about Simba and his uncle. It's also about Simba and the family he creates with Timon and Pumbaa. So family plays a big role in this. Of course, it's about the circle of life. That's a little bit important. But it's also about things like power and manipulation. Kind of talking about the circle of life, it's about society and class, the way the animals are kind of categorized. But what I want to talk about is motivation. So I'm going to talk about this topic, motivation, okay? So I've got my list of topics. I have finished the text, quote unquote, so I have watched the film multiple times over the course of my life. So I am ready to make a statement because I have chosen my topic, okay? So I'm going to start with the author believes that. What does the author believe about motivation based on what I have seen? Well, I think the author believes that actions motivated by selfish desire will ultimately fail. Okay, so that's my theme statement. To make this a complete theme statement, I'm going to mark out the author believes that. I'm going to make this a capital letter. So now this is my statement. Actions motivated by selfish desire will ultimately fail. Now my job is to use evidence from the text to prove that my theme statement is true. What in this story proves that actions motivated by selfish desire will ultimately fail? Now, I do want to talk about some examples on that theme statement. So I told you we didn't want it to be too vague or too specific. So this statement, it's not too vague. I'm not saying selfishness is bad. I'm giving you a specific interpretation of selfishness. Actions motivated by selfish desire will ultimately fail. So it's not too vague. It's also not too specific. I don't say, Scar fails because he's selfish. I don't say anything about any plot information or character names or setting information. It is a very general statement that could apply to lots of situations. Okay, so those two things, check. I have a good statement. It's good to go, and now I can start proving it with evidence. So let's look at some evidence from the story that shows me that actions motivated by selfish desire will ultimately fail. So let's start with the biggest failure of the group. Let's talk about Scar. Scar is motivated by jealousy. He's jealous of his brother through the whole story. But he's also motivated by greed. He has this greed for power and recognition. So those two things, definitely self-centered in nature. He is motivated by those two things. And that motivation, he does succeed for a little bit. He does get control of Pride Rock. He gets rid of his brother. He gets rid of Simba. He is in power. But the failure there is he totally ruins Pride Rock, and it becomes this terrible place to live, and it's just blown up in his face. So he's got the Pride Rock failure, but then very quickly after that, his actions lead to his own death. So definitely his selfish desires of jealousy and greed lead to failure on his part. Another failure that we could talk about would be the hyenas as a group. They are motivated pretty much exclusively by hunger. For them, it's all about, I need to eat, I need food, where's the food? So they're motivated by hunger. And for a little bit, they see Scar and they're like, he seems like a quick solution to this problem. So they kind of ride on his coattails and they're like, okay, he's promising us food. He's promising everything we want. And they get that for a little bit, but that initial failure of ruining Pride Rock, all the food is gone. And even the hyenas are starting to be like, okay, Scar, now what? Because all this food is gone. So they have a little bit of success, but then it fails. And then with Scar's death, I'm fairly certain that we see the hyenas eating him at the end of the film. So again, for a little bit, their hunger is satisfied. But after that, they're still not allowed at Pride Rock. They may have even made that situation worse. The lions are not going to help them at all, so they are still hungry. And if you have seen Lion King 2, it continues on through that storyline. There's still this hunger. And I'm not going to get into Lion King 2. It does move from a physical hunger to a hunger for power. But they're still hungry. Okay, at the end, they still don't have what they want. The person that they thought was going to get it for them, it did not work. So those are two examples of selfish desire failing. Now, to prove my thesis correct, I could do the converse, and so I could show examples of people who have unselfish desires and succeeded. So let's look at Simba. Simba comes back to Pride Rock, not because of guilt, but I think because of loyalty. But also family. He knows who he is. He knows why he needs to go back, and he's motivated by that sense of loyalty and the sense of family. This is who I am. This is the job that I have, and my family is hurting, and he knows that, and he knows he's the only one who can fix it. So he comes back because of unselfish desires. He comes back because of other people. And that leads to his success. Another example that we could talk about is Nala. Nala finds Simba because she is out looking for food for the others at Pride Rock. So she's motivated by a sense of responsibility. This is my job. This is what I have to do. I have got to feed these people. This is what's expected of me, and I'm going to go as far as I have to fulfill my responsibility. And she just happens to find Simba when she does that. And that, leads to the return of Pride Rock to its rightful leaders. And it becomes a place of wealth and success again. So all of this shows that my thesis statement is true. So these two show my thesis statement is true because these are characters motivated by selfish desire who failed. These two show that it's true because these are characters motivated by unselfish desire who succeeded. So this is an example of me going through and finding a theme statement. So if I were to write this into an essay, my theme statement would then become my thesis. And then each one of these would be a body paragraph. Okay, so I have a thesis. It goes in my intro paragraph. I've got 4 body paragraphs that I can talk about. I can talk about scars, failure in a paragraph. Or if I only wanted 2 body paragraphs, I could talk about examples of failure and examples of success and how those show that my theme statement is true. So that's what we're going to be doing as we go through the book this semester. We're going to be building a case for our theme statement or thesis when we get to the essay. So again, we create a list of topics. We make sure and finish the text before we develop a theme statement. We gather up some evidence, use that evidence to write a statement. We can use the sentence starter, the author believes that. We cross that out and we make a general statement about life. Okay? All right, so now you're going to go to Google Classroom and you're going to take that short quiz that is over this video.